trade, energy, food. Here, where a geological threshold becomes a balance sheet problem overnight. The Mediterranean isn't just a sea. It's the short circuit of 3 continents' supply chains. If Gibraltar coughs and the basin's breathing slows, the knock-ons run through Suez, LNG schedules, refinery slates, and grain receipts before anyone says, salt giant. Start with the Suez Med chain. It's already a stacked Jenga of choke points. Bab el-Mandeb feeds Suez, Suez feeds the Central Med, and the Central Med hands cargo east and west through narrow approach channels. A wobble in one block compounds across the stack. We've seen how even a single grounded hull or a week of missile threats flips freight math. Insurance premia spike, convoying slows, and ships detour around Africa, adding 10-14 days and 6 figures of fuel. Layer a Gibraltar exchange slowdown on top. Warmer, saltier intermediates, sluggier currents, more uncertain ETA windows, and schedulers bake in buffer days or choose the long way by default. That's capacity removed from the system without a single port strike. Energy next. The Med acts like a pressure valve between Atlantic LNG and the high-demand nodes of southern Europe and the Levant. Spot cargoes thread into the basin to arbitrage winter spikes, then back out to Spain, France, Italy, Greece, and Turkey. A ventilation choke doesn't kill deliveries, but it amplifies meteorology and draft constraints into reliability risk. When reliability drops, underwriters move first. War risk writers expand into route risk. Lenders, covenants ask for alternative port options, and charterers demand premium day rates for crews willing to eat uncertainty. Traders front-run that with wider bid-ask spreads at Greek and Italian markers, and marginal molecules peel toward Atlantic basins where laytime is predictable. Net effect: fewer flexible cargoes into the Med, more price volatility at the edges. Crude and products feel it too. North African grades and Eastern Med sweet barrels reach European refineries through approach channels that don't love long-period swell or odd stratification. If the basin grows more stratified and internal wave energy shifts, you get more weather holds at exposed terminals and tighter operating windows on single buoy moorings. Add Suez variability, convoys tightened, canal fees repriced, or precautionary slow steaming, and refiners hedge by raising inventories or pulling more from the North Sea and U.S. Gulf. That reweights pipelines and product tankers through the Atlantic, bidding up freight and cracking margins. You don't need a drought to move a diesel crack. You need planners who can't trust schedules. Now the fragile one, grain. The Black Sea to MENA corridor is one of the quiet backbones of food security. Wheat, corn, and sunflower oil inbound to Egypt, Algeria, Tunisia, Lebanon, and beyond ride predictable slots through the Bosporus, across the Central Med into shallow draft ports that juggle swell, silt, and bureaucracy. Climatic hits already shorten harvests, route hits multiply price. If exchange at Gibraltar signals instability, more delays, fewer willing hulls, higher insurance, some owners refuse fixtures into the basin at standard rates. Freight blows out by dollars per ton, which at MENA volumes translates into budget holes for importers and price lifts on the street. A 10-20% swing on landed grain isn't manageable for subsidy-stressed treasuries. It's rationing pressure and political noise. Fertilizer is the hidden fuse. Nitrogen feedstock, gas, and phosphate chains cross this sea both ways. When LNG availability wobbles and voyage times stretch, ammonia and urea shipments shift timing and planting calendars slip. That misses yield windows. Even if you can buy the grain, you're chasing less of it. Food inflation becomes sticky because you're now solving logistics at the same time you're fighting agronomy. Ports and insurers price this early. Dwell time becomes the KPI to watch. If average box or bulk dwell at Central Basin ports trends up and stays up, terminal operators move to congestion surcharges, lines trim calls, and feeder networks fray. Draft limits creep tighter when swells and set down events force conservative pilots. Shippers re-rate reliability and push cargo inland by rail where possible. Iberia to Benelux, Italy to Bavaria, Maghreb to inland Morocco. Rail gets loved quickly when water gets weird. Fleet behavior is the tell. Owners shift tonnage lists away from ports with rising weird water days, more no-go windows from internal waves, more last-minute pilot cancellations, more tug unavailability and bad chop. That quietly lowers effective capacity in the basin. Rates rise first on marginal routes, then bleed into index benchmarks. You'll hear it as Mediterranean premium long before anyone blames a sill. This doesn't stay regional. When Atlantic ports pick up volume shed by Central Basin uncertainty, their yard productivity and truck turn times get tested. Azores and Madeira look less like postcards and more like mid-ocean waypoints for rerouting and bunkering. Red Sea pivots absorb Suez slowdowns but inherit risk. West African and U.S. Gulf exporters gain share into Europe, pushing different sulfur, octane, and blending specs, which refineries must chase or pay up for swaps. Okay, so what do players actually do when the needles twitch? Traders widen spreads and pre-position inventory outside the basin. Insurers rewrite exclusions, push rates, and blacklist terminals with rising incident frequency. Charterers bias to ships with dual routing optionality and crew comfort in difficult waters, paying for it in day rates. Governments quietly negotiate state-to-state liftings for grain and fuel, jumping queues. And capital, it follows reliability. Inland logistics assets and Atlantic-facing terminals re-rate up. Central Basin, shallow approach ports with silt problems re-rate down. The headline will say supply shock. The footnote will be Gibraltar exchange trend flipped 3 quarters ago. That's why we planted that one number. Money moves before water finishes the story. And when money starts moving, people do too, which is where we're heading next. The human pivot, migration, brain drain, city risk. Here's the quiet pivot nobody budgets for. When routes get unreliable and food risk feels local, people move first with their feet and then with their skills. And the Mediterranean rim is built like a domino line, coastal megacities, thirsty deltas, and youth bulges sitting on margins. Start with the physics that shows up in tap water. Coastal subsidence plus sea level variability plus salinity intrusion squeezes urban infrastructure from 3 sides. Delta cities, the Nile, the Po, the Rhône mouths, already battle saline fingers creeping up groundwater. A tighter, warmer, more stratified basin amplifies set-up events and internal wave surges that push brackish water upriver on still days. Utilities compensate with pumping and blending until energy costs bite. Then the rationing starts, hour blocks, district rotations, brown water fines. Households with options get ahead of the curve. Agriculture feels it as margin first, exit next. The olive, citrus, and grape belts work inside narrow moisture and salinity windows. When exchanges wobble and heat spikes stack, irrigation draw ramps just as water quality slips. Yields drop a little, then disease pressure rises, then labor turns over. Farm families do the same math city planners do and cash the last decent harvest to fund a move. Coast to inland, inland to rail nodes to Atlantic-facing ports. You watch it in school enrollments and building permits before you see it in censuses. Now the talent layer. Port economies live on predictability. Pilots, tug crews, crane techs, power engineers, maritime insurers, the whole logistics stack. When weird water days eat into work windows and insurers push exclusions, pay narrows and schedules go erratic. The best people don't wait for a mayoral press conference. They take lateral moves to yards and terminals with fewer no-go days. That looks like brain drain because it is. And once senior operators leave, incident rates climb, premiums climb, the next wave leaves. It's a feedback loop with a resume. We've seen this movie in other contexts. In the UK, when conditions tipped, housing, pay, workload, skilled departures outran arrivals 3-1. That's not a small leak. That's a professional class turning the valve. Translate the lesson. If Central Basin cities ask specialists to manage growing volatility without tools, neighboring hubs with steadier water and clearer budgets inherit the bench. Micro stories show up fast. A mid-sized port town logs 5 extra lost workdays in a quarter due to internal wave-induced swell at the berth. The pilots start texting about odd set downs and aborted approaches. The insurer flags the port for review. Within 6 months, junior crane operators are interviewing in Atlantic yards. The senior pilot is consulting 2 weeks a month in a safer strait. The Maritime Academy's best cohort signs contracts in Rotterdam and Le Havre. Nobody calls it climate migration. It's just careers following reliability. Security overlays arrive 1 season behind. Water competition hardens. Ag districts versus urban taps. Coastal hotels versus farms. Power rationing follows because salinity control is energy-hungry and grids bend under peak cooling loads. Police departments stretch to manage more theft from yards idled by schedule slippage, and crowd management gets added to harbor master meetings. States reach for old tools. Temporary export controls on staples, cash stipends for strategic workers, military presence at key terminals. Those calm headlines, ensuring continuity of critical services, translate to people reading the room and moving their families. Urban planning gets caught mid-stride. Floodgates and storm sewers were sized for storm surges, not for internal tide regimes that make clearance windows unpredictable. When berths lose safe approach hours, ship calls slide toward daytime slack, stacking noise and traffic. Neighborhoods near terminals lose sleep and gain air pollution. Property markets flip, waterfront premiums flatten, inland logistics parks with rail spurs bid up. Landlords pivot to warehouse conversions, residents commute farther for steady pay. The city morphs toward freight and away from service, until the freight shifts elsewhere and the tax base thins. Youth red signals fastest. Entry-level jobs tied to tourism, fishing, and small-scale trade get choppy. Language schools and tech boot camps with pathways out of the basin fill first. Visa lawyers start offering portability packages tied to Atlantic hubs, Nordic grids, and inland water tech. The local cafe with engineering meetups becomes a departure lounge. It's not just a brain drain, it's a bandwidth drain, the energy of a place bleeding toward nodes with redundancy. There's also a second-order effect. Knowledge silos crack. The artisans who know exactly how to service a specific class of mooring or how to nurse a brackish intrusion back with minimal chemical load take that craft tacitly with them. Manuals can't replace 30 years of hands and eyes. Cities discover they've outsourced memory. So who holds their ground? Places that prove redundancy. Cities that diversify intake, desal with firm power behind it, groundwater protection, interties to inland reservoirs, retain households. Ports that demonstrate fewer lost workdays through tug upgrades, dynamic pilotage windows, and data-driven internal wave nowcasts, retain crews. Regions that build rail over water corridors give employers alternatives when voyage times wander. And governments that absorb insurance shocks for food and fuel keep tempers cool. The bottom line isn't panic, it's sequence. Reliability slips, costs rise, expertise thins, households hedge. Then the city's risk compounds. If you live on this rim, watch 3 dials: water quality advisories, port lost workdays, and net professional registrations. When they trend the wrong way together for 2 quarters, migration becomes policy whether leaders say the word or not. State reactions, dams, canals, and desperate engineering. Okay, so what do states do when a gated sea starts acting like a moody machine? They reach for levers, steel, concrete pumps, and law, trying to force reliability back into the system. Some of this is smart triage. Some of it is expensive denial. First lever, modulate the gate. Gibraltar looks like nature's valve, so the fantasy is you tune it. You'll hear proposals for submerged curtains, inflatable sills, or gated barrages that throttle the 2-layer exchange. Reduce bottom outflow on bad days, encourage surface inflow on hot spells. On paper, you balance salt and oxygen and buy time. In practice, you're fighting density with fabric and heavy internal waves under shipping lanes across microseismic slopes. Maintenance lives at the edge of safe diver work. One slump, one tear, and you're replacing canvas with lawyers. More hard-edged versions sketch caissons and partial sills. Engineered bumps on the cameronal throat to raise hydraulic control a few meters in damp extremes. That's billion-euro concrete in a zone that flexes. You will shift shear, you will move mixing, and you will surprise the modelers. Also, every knot of current you shave off there shows up in ETAs and fuel. Maritime lobbies will ask who pays when schedules slip. Underwriters will ask who's liable when a bulbous bow meets a tidal bore you just tuned. Second lever, feed the edges. If the basin trends saltier and rivers can't keep pace, ministries start drawing lines on maps to pour fresh water into coastal cells. Think mega dams and canals reviving old cross basin dreams. The ghost here is C-A-T-S, the 20th century fantasy of diverting Siberian rivers to arid southlands. Today's echo is milder but just as risky. Alpine transfer canals to the Po and Rhône shelves, Iberian interbasin grabs to prop Ebro deltas, even talk of Nile augmentation upstream to stiff-arm salinity intrusion. It's hydrology as geopolitics. Every cubic meter saved at a mouth is a farmer you angered upriver. Then come city-scale workarounds. Desalination build-out spike when taps taste brackish. The brochure says independence, the meter says gas bill. Reverse osmosis at coastal megacities runs on firm power and loves steady seawater. If internal tide regimes get choppier and intake sea swings in turbidity and jelly loads, plants trip more, filters foul faster, and your levelized cost of water creeps up. Stack 3 summers of peak demand and heat waves, and the grid buckles under peaking AC and desal. Governments promise batteries, finance reads, capex spiral. You'll also see ports and terminals militarized in slow motion. Not a coup, just a normalization of uniforms at gates because critical logistics need protection. Straits get patrol corridors, approach channels add mandatory convoys on certain days, exclusion zones widen under the banner of safety. That calms headlines, but it lengthens lines and nudges private owners to move ships and cargo to less policed, more predictable nodes. It's security theater in a place where physics is the antagonist. River capture whispers back in weird policy packets. If one shelf city can't keep its delta wet, policymakers float schemes to borrow neighboring catchments through tunnels and drops. The maps look tidy. The mountains do not. Tunneling under young origins is geotechnical roulette, grout water bursts, squeeze, repeat. Meanwhile, downstream ecosystems read the invoice in wetlands lost and fisheries altered. When the first cracks show up in canal linings during a hot summer, the public reads boondoggle. There's also the quiet engineering, pilots, tugs, and berths upgraded to cope with internal waves and set downs. Dynamic windows for approaches driven by nowcasts, extra bollards for long-period surges, tug horsepower bumped across fleets. These are the moves that actually buy time. They reduce lost workdays without rewriting the sea. They're not glamorous ribbon cutters, so budgets starve them until the KPI trend forces hands. Behind all of it runs the finance problem. Desal, dams, curtains, and canals draw sovereign debt and private placements. Spreads widen when insurers and rating agencies start marking root risk into coastal balance sheets. If your grid already creaks and your current account leans on imported fuel and grain, piling capex for water hardware reads brave today, brittle tomorrow. Bond covenants don't care that gypsum once grew under your sea. History coughs up a caution. The last century's sea-level hubris, reclaim, dike, pave, worked until the boundary conditions shifted. Then maintenance ate budgets and storms rewrote plans. Repeat that pattern here and you'll trap cities in permanent emergency procurement. So what's left that scales sanely? 3 things. Protect groundwater like it's a strategic reserve. Managed aquifer recharge, salinity barriers on wells, and ruthless leak reduction in pipes. Harden port operability with data and muscle, not concrete fantasies. More tugs, smarter pilotage, better moorings. And diversify conveyance, rail over water corridors that give shippers a way to say, we can still meet Wednesday. Everything else? Dams, mega canals, gate curtains. They'll be tried, some will help briefly, many will backfire, and all will be paid for twice. Once at the ribbon, again in the retrofit. And while states argue over concrete, remember the needles. If the exchange budget at Gibraltar drifts and stays negative, none of this changes the basin's math. You don't negotiate with a trapdoor, you get off it. The suppression file, why this story was soft-pedaled. Okay, so if the rock record screams trapdoor, why wasn't this front page for 50 years? Simple, incentives. A lot of powerful sectors need the Mediterranean to be a postcard, not a machine with an off switch. Start with the Mediterranean brand. Tourism, coastal real estate, and blue economy boosters sell calm bays, predictable summers, and infinite sea. Try marketing kilometer-scale evaporites and a gateway that once failed catastrophically. Hotel syndicates and property funds don't lobby for nuance, they lobby for certainty. A rumor of basin instability hits yields and the ad copy gets nervous. Stability theater pays. Then there's national messaging. Sovereigns price their bonds against a story of dependable infrastructure and durable geography. Ports, grids, desal plants, and metros are collateral in policy speeches. You don't stand at a podium and say, our super basin is threshold sensitive, please buy this 30-year paper. You say, gateway of 3 continents open for business. Investor decks smooth over gate mechanics. Ministries issue glossy PDFs with dolphins and rail maps. Academia has its own gravity. The DSDP Leg 13 salt cores and the M-Reflector were a shock, but after the rewrite came a détente. Call it a salinity crisis, keep it climate-flavored, and file the catastrophic mechanics under ongoing debate. It's not a conspiracy. It's grant math. Proposals that emphasize incremental refinement of slow change models read safe to panels. The Strait is a threshold engine and timelines can compress. Reads like a career hazard unless you walk every caveat to the footnote. Reviewers reward caution. Headlines punish ambiguity. Shipping and insurance prefer predictable narratives too. Underwriters price what they can measure. Root risk, they understand war zones, piracy, storms. Internal tide regime shifting because a sill's density staircase changed. That's not an actuarial table, that's a headache. So the risk gets parked, premiums follow political maps, and hydrodynamics stay in the appendix. Charterers and P&I clubs ask pilots if approaches feel different. If the answer is sometimes, the line item dies quietly. Outlier scientists did warn carefully. They mapped the canyon scars, published Zanclean Flood discharge ranges around 10.8 cubic meters per second, flagged uplift and microseismic creep across the Batik Rift arc, and wrote that Gibraltar's hydraulic control is sensitive. But their strongest sentences got buffered by likely, consistent with, and pending higher resolution constraints. That's how you keep your lab open. Journal editors don't love trapdoor prose, even when the physics is clean. There's also institutional muscle memory. The last half-century of oceanography matured on long trends,